Go.
Hello, boys and girls. Welcome back to 8th grade math. Today we're going to be talking about angles and parallel lines. Please keep in mind that when there is a transversal that cuts through parallel lines, it's going to create a lot of interesting relationships with the angles that they form. So, off we start. In this video, we are going to go over angles that are formed when you take a line and you cut it through two parallel lines. And the type of angles that are formed have different categories. I will teach you about corresponding angles, alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, transversals, which are lines that goes through two parallel lines, corresponding angles, and much more. Please right now don't focus too much on the things that I have written below, because I will teach you this as we go. With this being an online course, I went ahead and previously recorded numbers and words, but I need you to be patient as I walk through each. I will be using my pointer to describe what everything means. So patience is mandatory. So please slowly follow along as I teach you. Now we are ready. Now you already know that parallel lines are two lines that will never meet. They extend into infinity. They never touch or intersect. And here are my two parallel lines. I sort of like to think of them like railroad tracks. They are never going to meet. Even though one is longer than the other, they won't meet. These arrows on each side means that this will go on and on and on in both directions, but they will never, ever meet. Transversal is a line that cuts or goes through both of the two parallel lines. This is what we call a transversal line. Notice that it cuts or it runs and it goes through this line and that line. Transversal. Now I'm going to label them. Here we go. Label 1, label 2, label 3, label 4, label 5, label 6, label 7, and label 8. Now, what you will notice is that when the transversal cuts through one parallel line, you have four angles, two on the top, two on the bottom, upper left, upper right, lower left, lower right, lower left, lower right, lower left, lower right. So now we are going to talk about corresponding angles. Angles that are formed in the same spot in each of the groupings. Now this is what we call a grouping. These are grouped and these are grouped. But notice that they're in the same spot. Okay? So what do I mean when I say they're in the same spot? So for example, angle 1 and angle 5 would be corresponding angles because they are both in the upper left-hand side of their grouping. Here's 1 and here's 5. They're located in the same spot within their grouping. So that's what you call a corresponding angle. Now let's see if we can name the other corresponding angles in this parallel line or in this figure. Now if you said that 2 and 6 are corresponding, you are correct. 2 is up here on the upper right and 6 is over here on the bottom right. But they're in the same location. Hopefully everybody understands that. And they are also considered corresponding. So I will put a square around these so you will know that they are corresponding. So that's why I took my red marker and I put squares around these to let you know that these are corresponding angles. If you said that 4 and 8 are corresponding, you would be correct. And finally, 3 and 7 would be the other corresponding angles. We will just call this category corresponding angles. So that's where I recorded these right here. These are what we call my corresponding angles. Take a look. Angle 1, this is my symbol for angle. Angle 1 and angle 5 are corresponding. 1, 5, corresponding. 2, 6, corresponding. 4, 8, corresponding. 3, 7, 3, 7, corresponding. Now the thing about corresponding angles with parallel lines is the fact that they're all equal and they're all congruent. So corresponding angles are congruent. So if you look at that, you will see that angle 1 and angle 5 are both obtuse. This is angle 1 and this is angle 5. Look how wide this right here is, this angle. It is what we call an obtuse angle. If you were to take a protractor and measure that, you will see how wide that angle is. And I know you remember what an obtuse angle is. And if we took our protractor and we measured it, just like I said, that we will see that they're the same. The measurement will be the same degrees. You'll notice that 2 and 6 are both acute. This is 2 and this is 6. So that width in there is a little bit smaller than how wide these are. So 2 and 6 would be considered acute. They're corresponding and they're also both congruent. Now, what do we know about 4 and 8? 4 and 8 are vertical. 4 and 8 would be considered a vertical line. Also, 5 and 8 would be considered vertical. 5 and 8 is the same, which means that 8 and 1 are also congruent. 8 and 1 are also congruent. They have the same number of angles. 5 would be congruent as well. So just kind of look at that. Think about the terminology that I'm using or the word choices that I'm using, and then move forward. Now, look at 3 and 2. 3 and 2. 3 and 2 are corresponding, and 7 and 6 are corresponding because they are the same number in degrees. There are all sorts of interesting relationships that start to happen with corresponding angles and parallel lines. Now, this leads to something that we call alternate interior. Here's our term, alternate interior angles. So we're moving from corresponding angles, we've covered that. Now let's talk about alternate interior. Let's think about what interior means, the word interior. If you look at this, you will see that 3, 4, 5, and 6 are between the two parallel lines. Here is 3, here is 4, here is 5, and here is 6. And they are between. See? Between. 3, 4, 5, and 6 are in the middle. They're between. Y'all know what it means if you got something that's between something. Keep that word between. So alternate interior angles are between parallel lines. Remember what we said about 1 and 4 being vertical? We said that 1 and 4 were vertical. And 5 and 8 being vertical. Since we know that 1 and 5 are congruent, and we know that 1 and 4 are vertical, and 5 and 8 are vertical, that must mean that 4 and 5 are congruent. And notice that there are alternate sides of the transverse. So that's why we call them alternate interior angles. So I recorded these right here. Angle 4, angle 5 are between the parallel lines and are congruent. Angle 3 and angle 6 are between the parallel lines and are congruent. So corresponding angles are congruent that are between parallel lines. So can you name any other alternate ulterior angles? And I just did that for you. Now, are 4, 5, 3, and 6, and the reason why, again, that they are considered alternate is because they have alternate sides and the opposite sides, and they are on opposite sides of the transversal line, and they are congruent. Y'all are doing really good with this. Now we got one more thing to discuss, and that would be the alternate exterior. Alternate exterior. Alternate means on the opposite side of the transversal. So that means it's on the opposite side of this transversal line. So 1, 3, 5, 7 are on the alternate side. I'll do it again. 1, 3, 5, and 7 are on the alternate side of 2, 4, 6, and 8. See, they're on this side, and 2, 4, and 6, and 8 are on that side. So now let's look at the exterior. If we eliminate the exterior, if we eliminate the interior, the exterior would be 1, 2, 7, and 8. So let's see what alternate exterior means. 1 and 8 would be alternate exterior angles. 2 and 7 are alternate exterior angles. And again, they would also be congruent. Now, 1 is also congruent with 4. See, 1 and 4 is congruent. 4 is a corresponding with 8. 4, as we said, this is like a review. 4 corresponds with 8. So 1 and 8 would be congruent. 2 is corresponding with 6. 6 is vertical to 7. That means that 2 and 7 are alternate exterior angles, and they are also congruent. Remember that alternate exteriors are 4 angles that are outside the parallel lines. Alternate exterior will be your 4 angles outside of the parallel lines, and always think of alternate as opposite sides of the transversal, and they're all congruent. Boys and girls, this ends our lesson today on angles and parallel lines. I hope you enjoyed my lesson. I want you to work hard on the assignments that I've provided for you today. Have an awesome day. Thank you. Bye-bye.